New Testament reading today is found in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 6 through 13. If you'd like to follow along in your pew Bible, it's in the New Testament, page 167. Yet among the mature we do speak wisdom, though it is not a wisdom of this age or of the rulers of this age, who are doomed to perish. But we speak God's wisdom, secret and hidden, which God decreed before the ages for our glory. None of the rulers of this age understood this, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, what no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the human heart conceived, what God has prepared for those who love him. These things God has revealed to us through the Spirit, for the Spirit searches everything, even the depths of God. For what human being knows what is truly human, except the human spirit that is within? So also no one comprehends what is truly God's, except the Spirit of God. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from God, so that we may understand the gifts bestowed on us by God. And we speak of these things in words not taught by human wisdom, but taught by the Spirit, interpreting spiritual things to those who are spiritual. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thanks, Bill. Thank you very much. On July the 4th, or when we celebrate this holiday, we always think about the people who serve and the kind of risks they take in serving our nation for many different reasons. And I was reminded of this from a friend in one of my previous churches who had served with the Navy aboard a nuclear submarine. Now, submarines are a particular interest of mine, kind of a hobby. So I wound up asking him a lot of questions about it, most of which he was not allowed to answer. I didn't ask, I guess, the right question, or I did ask the right questions, but he still couldn't answer. My friend did answer, however, when I asked him if there was any time during his deployment when he was afraid. He told me a remarkable story about a time when his sub was under the surface of the icy waters in the straits between Alaska and Siberia, very, very deep. And a new sailor, a young sailor who had just come on board, inexplicably turned one wrong valve on a water intake line. The submarine began to quickly flood from the bow. And before they could get that valve closed that quickly, they started plunging toward the bottom. As they went deeper, the captain and the crew struggled frantically to catch the boat and stop the uncontrolled dive. The sub would not respond. It was bow heavy, and it wouldn't respond. As they plummeted at a tremendous speed, my friend told me that they started to hear the terrifying results of the increasing depth as the water pressure squeezed the hull. Very quickly, they were approaching that point which all submariners dread more than any other. Crushed depth, when the hull would yield to the pressure and collapse. My friend told me that suddenly things became very quiet on the boat, as many of the sailors kind of fell into a dull shock. That's how he described it. He told me he heard some quiet prayers, while some others softly wept, as he began to think about his own life and his family, and he started praying. He, along with his shipmates, were absolutely certain, that they were going to die any second as their boat went below crushed depth, rated for that boat. when, just by some miracle, the engineering crew caught the boat and reversed the dive. When they finally surfaced, after an incredibly slow ascent, which they had to do, they immediately had to have the sub towed to dry dock for a complete refit, as every weld had been pushed to its maximum limit. Now, you never read about this in the paper, did you? Of course not. Didn't publish it. But it happened. My friend told me that after the terrifying incident, he became a completely different person in several ways. First, he decided not to re-enlist. Smart man. But he also told me that he no longer took for granted neither his loved ones nor his fate. He had survived crushed depth, below crushed depth, and had emerged from that with a new perspective on life. So often we live our lives on the surface, don't we? Just on the surface. We take for granted our present and our future, while not even trying to remember or learn from the past. The great poet E.E. Cummings described this really unconscious way of living in one of his most powerful poems, Anyone Lived in a Pretty Town. And this is what he wrote in describing ordinary people. This is what he said. They sowed their isn't. They reaped their same. They sowed their isn't. They reaped their same. In order to be awakened to the true purpose of life, we need to go to crushed depth. And that can happen, or usually happens, in only one of two ways: our own experience of death or near death, or our encounter with the depravity of the human heart, either our own or someone else's or somewhere in the world. Don't we sometimes find ourselves feeling crushed by the power of evil in this world? I do. We are shocked by massacres, terrorism, the rage, and the seemingly endless horrors that can easily be discovered by the click of a mouse on the internet. Things so terrible that we do to each other and to ourselves that we can scarce believe them. In fact, like those sailors, we kind of fall into a dull shock, don't we? Time after time after time. That is why the cry of the psalmist, even from centuries ago, sounds as if it could have been written yesterday. Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in deep mire where there is no foothold. O God, answer me. With your faithful help, rescue me from sinking in the mire. Do not let the flood sweep over me, or the deep swallow me up, or the pit close its mouth over me. Now, our defense against such dark thoughts is not to confront them, but to run away from them as quickly as we can, baptizing ourselves in naive waters of self-fulfillment, greed, acquisitiveness, lust for things like power, for things like money. Why does wealth not make us happy? Why does having things not just fill our hearts with joy, as statistics constantly affirm? Why? Well, one obvious answer is because the more we have, the more afraid we become of losing. And the more desperate we become to keep it. Eventually, our fears, just our fears, whatever they may be, plummet us to crush death, and our spirits drown. Happens every day. But there is another way to reach crushed death and not die, as described by the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Corinthians. Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from God, so that we may understand the gifts bestowed on us by God. And we speak of these things in words, not taught by human wisdom, but taught by the Spirit, interpreting spiritual things to those who are spiritual. The Spirit is interpreting spiritual things to those who are spiritual. When Paul wrote these words, the church in Corinth had reached crushed death, and they feared that their community was literally on the verge of imploding, and it was. The church leaders were fighting among each other. Those Christians who had a Jewish background were not comfortable sharing the church with those who were Gentiles. Another faction in the church declared that they were more spiritual than everyone else, and that God was telling them secrets to which no one else in that congregation was privileged. It seemed that everyone in the church of Corinth was searching for their own personal truth. And in doing so, they created hatred and jealousy between the church members. It was a church that had reached crushed death. Paul's response to their desperate letter for help was to tell them not to search for the truth, to stop searching for the truth, but to let the truth search them. Listen to that again. To not search for the truth, but to let the truth search them. That truth being the Holy Spirit of God. Paul declared that through worship and prayers and the sacraments, they could move away from the failings of each other and start seeing the flaws in their own hearts. Paul told them that if the Christians of Corinth embraced and acknowledged their own sins, if they could reach a spiritual crushed depth, they could throw themselves upon the mercy of the Lord, and in receiving that mercy and grace, they could gain the gifts of the Spirit, understanding, wisdom, not the wisdom of the world, the wisdom of Christ's love. That is the wisdom that we need this morning as we approach this table. Now, on the surface, in the eyes of the world, the Lord's Supper is little more than an empty ritual of memorized words and repeated actions. And it can be so to us, unless we are willing to reach crushed depth. That point where we are willing to acknowledge that there is something more than this world can ever give to us, even if the world were to give us everything. There's something greater, something more. Crushed depth is that point where we realize that we can never have our heart's desire because we don't even know our heart's desire. But God does. And God will give us what we need today, right here, and forever, if we are willing to go deep by means of this sacrament. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote these words, and if you're going to put anything on your refrigerators for my sermon, any words that you write, let it be these. Listen to this. It is not length of life, but depth of life. Listen to that again. It is not length of life, but depth of life. How deep in our lives are we willing to go this morning? Are we living on the surface? Are we clinging to that ever-collapsing raft of worldly things? Or are we willing simply to let go and sink? Not drown, but sink into the infinite depths of Christ's love. This table is the place of letting go and letting God take us down and lift us back up above crushed depth into a new life that belongs not to us, but to the Holy Spirit within us. Are we open to having that new life in us this morning? It's time for us to get ready to go to the table. But if we're going to go, let's make sure that we go deep, deep into the love of our Lord.